Whenever you take the red pill, whenever you exit the matrix, whenever you become awakened from your coma of slumber, whichever way you would like to describe it, when that takes place, you understand that governments, the education system, politicians, the media, so on and so forth, they are conspiring against you through propaganda in order to consolidate power for the 1% at the top. Then you can reasonably assume that they're not going to admit that outright, and as a result, they are going to lie about events. I always say this too, if they lie about the present, if they're going to lie about the Covington kids, if they're going to lie about this quote-unquote suicide of Jeffrey Epstein, then what makes you think they're not lying about, let's say, the Civil War or the British Empire, for instance? I mean, I'm not saying they do specifically those two things, but the point I'm making is, if they're going to lie to you in the present, that means they're going to lie to you about the past. But when you understand that, then you can realize that things are not as they seem. 9/11, you can make the case. One building in the Pentagon was hit that a week before lost billions of dollars. There was no cameras to document it, and it was budget directors, just that one building. No other buildings in the Pentagon were hit. Jeffrey Epstein, the cameras didn't work. He was taken off suicide watch. He was about to spill dirt on all these powerful people. Okay, you can make the case of that. But what I think is the dumbest thing is when people in the conspiracy community, they do that gematria bullshit. There's certain channels on here, I don't want to mention them by name because I don't want to give stupidity a platform, and I don't want to call anyone out unless they attack me directly, because I'm not looking to start anything. But in my opinion, those gematria channels are the dumbest channels on YouTube. For those of you that don't know, they say every single event is planned. Now, let me preface. See, when you actually think things out, when you focus on facts, reason, evidence, and logic, you entertain a lot of ideas. As you do that, you have to dissect piece by piece. So the notion that every single thing is rigged is just absurd. Recently, for those of you that are not following it, Andrew Luck, who was one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL, retired at 29 years old. He said he was mentally worn out. Now, these videos that are gematria videos, they say it was planned the whole time. Every event that happens, a celebrity death, a fire, a political event, everything that happens, it was all planned all along by the New World Order, by the Illuminati, by the Deep State. It was all planned all the time. So they say, okay, so you're telling me this. If you're going to entertain that notion, let's do that for a moment, that Andrew Luck planned this all along. You're telling me that Andrew Luck planned to fuck up his bladder, planned to hurt his shoulder, planned to hurt his knee, and all of a sudden now it's in his leg and he's not mobile, just to retire at 29 years old, getting booed by the fans when he was walking off the field, without winning a Super Bowl, when he could have ended up being one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, leaving $55 million on the table because it was all planned. That's what you want me to think. And then here's the funny part. Anytime you debate someone and they don't give you facts back, if they use ad hominem attacks or they try to act like you're dumb for not believing them because of lack of evidence, they lose the debate. And here's how these people go. If I were to bring that up, they would say, well, you just don't understand how the elites work. Well, you didn't explain to me how they work. You didn't explain nothing. Or they say, well, keep being brainwashed, buddy, by the elites. And it's like, you didn't explain how your ideas are better. You're just using ad hominem attacks because your ideas are retarded and you think you're intellectually superior to everybody else because you want to feel like you have this hidden knowledge that nobody has. Are sports rigged? Absolutely. But it's common sense versus bullshit. Bullshit would be that a Thursday night game where the Houston Rockets play the Utah Jazz that is not televised on national television is all planned by the elites. I mean, let me ask you this. If every single sporting event is rigged, all 82 games, and if you look at the NBA, they usually have 5 to 10 games a night that people don't even pay attention to. You're telling me that the elites have all this time on their hands where they're going to go rig a random game just because they can. Now, I get it. If the Lakers are playing against, let's say, the Charlotte Hornets, who's going to generate more money in the finals? Well, LeBron James is going to get higher ratings for the TV network, more eyes on the advertisers, because more people will be watching. He's going to get more sales when it comes to shoes, hats, whatever they wear when they win the championship. He's going to get more people to go to the game, so more hotels, more parking spots, more hot dogs sold. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's just common business acumen to say, if LeBron makes it, it's going to generate more money, but that's the finals. But every random event it's just all planned. It's all rigged. Everything is rigged. Everything is planned. Every celebrity death is planned. They plan it ahead of time. So how do they do this? Let me ask you this. Is what they do is they get someone like, let's say, Michael Jackson and say, when you're 50 years old, you're going to end up overdosing. It's all planned. We all planned it. And you're a sacrifice for the Illuminati. I mean, give me a break, folks. Sports are used as a distraction. I get that. When I was watching the Super Bowl, I like football. My favorite team is the Patriots. I like football. But when I was watching the Super Bowl, in the intro to the game, they showed the stadium where they were playing the Super Bowl. I forget where it was. I'm just not that into it as I used to be. They slow it down, and it looks like a Roman Colosseum. And that's because that is symbology. But see, you can actually reasonably make a case instead of, it's A, and A's the 5th letter in the alphabet, and A spells asshole, and I'm intellectual, you're not, you know. But anyway, it is used to distract you. When the Roman Empire was collapsing, people were arguing over gladiatorial fights. They were arguing over the chariot races. And meanwhile, the government was destroying them from within. And the people were becoming increasingly dumber. I get that. That is all by design. I understand that. But that's a difference between saying it's a distraction, so you'll be more angry about Tom Brady winning the Super Bowl, versus Jeffrey Epstein, as opposed to saying that everything is rigged. That's the difference. And then you're saying, if you're making that case, you have to say every referee, every coach, every player, every single individual involved is in on it. That's the case you have to make. And they're all willing to do this because the Illuminati, I don't know. And I believe in the Illuminati, but reasonable things. So it is used as a distraction. I get that. The other people that are stupid are people that say, here's the thing, I believe that everyone has the right to believe how they want to believe. And as long as they're not inflicting harm upon you, anybody else, they have their right. But if you're going to make fun of Christians because they're going to church, which I don't, I'm not a Christian, I don't go to church. But if you're going to make fun of Christians because they go to church and you're going to say, well, I'm just spiritual, I say, what does that mean? And they're like, what? It's like they always make that statement because they hear it, they regurgitate it. They always hear, I'm not a Christian, I'm spiritual. And you're like, well, dissect that, expand on that. And they're like, what do you mean? And you just said you're spiritual. It's not what I mean. I'm asking you, what do you mean by that? And then they say some bullshit thing like, well, I believe that we all believe in the same God, but we just have different ways of doing it. Well, if that's the case, then what you're saying is that even Christians believe in the same God you do. But weren't you just making fun of them earlier? And then they just get mad. It's like, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with being spiritual. But if you're going to make fun of somebody for the way they worship, and then you're going to say that your way is superior, it doesn't make any sense. It's like these people think they're intellectual. They think they have this consolidated knowledge that nobody knows about. And here's the truth. If I had knowledge that I thought could help people, or if I knew the truth in any capacity, I would want to share it with people. I'd want more people to know it. Because I'd want more people to be educated against the propaganda. That's the difference, though. They have this superiority complex where they want to know the truth, but nobody else can know it. And if you dare question them, they're just like the mainstream media, who they claim to be against. But if you dare question them, oh, it's because you believe you believe everything you're told. I mean, that's just an absurd claim that they make without evidence. See, I'm consistent. I hold everyone to the same standard. When the media claims WMDs, I hold them to the same standard as an individual that would claim that it was all planned, that Michael Jackson was going to be killed because of the Illuminati sacrifices and gematria bullshit. See, I hold these people to the same standard. When you make a claim, I want some facts, evidence, logic, something to back up your opinion. And if you offer that, I'll at least temporarily entertain the idea. And if it makes sense to me, then I might change my opinion. If it makes sense and you have verifiable evidence, then I'll change my opinion. Think about it though. What are the most powerful things on the planet? Land, resources, and capital, right? So there are things going on where the elites are controlling, but the elites don't give a fuck about a football game. They don't care who wins. They own all the corporations that broadcast the games. They own all the advertisements. They're going to make money anyway. Yeah, they might let LeBron James make it or Tom Brady because it's going to get higher ratings, but they don't give a shit who wins at the end of the day. You're going to be distracted, you're going to be more broke, and you're going to be less focused on what they're doing anyway at the end of the day. But what they do care about is oil. Our entire economy runs on oil. The tractors that produce the food run on diesel. They then put them in a truck that is run on diesel. They get processed at a plant which is run on electricity, fossil fuels. They again get transported to the grocery store. But all that takes oil and fossil fuels. If you can control the oil supply, as John D. Rockefeller did, as the elites do, you can control the economy. Same thing with land. If you can go in these areas, take these areas over by using resources, that's the way you do it. And that's happening right now. If you want more information, look up George Webb. George Webb talks about some of this. But the difference between George Webb and these gematria morons is he provides evidence. He gives you names of congressmen, names of businesses. He gives you historical context. Then he puts them all together. He connects the dots. That's all he's doing, is connecting the dots together. So, for instance, the Humpty Dumpty Institute, this is a story, you can Google this, has Adam Schiff, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and other individuals who are traveling to the United Arab Emirates. Who owns that institute? Who's on the board of directors? Jeffrey Epstein's brother, Mark Epstein. And this institute is smuggling drugs, human trafficking, and other things. You can look all this up, but these names are connected. They do the same thing in Haiti. Bill Gates flew on the Lolita Express with Jeffrey Epstein multiple times. It's in the flight log. So did Bill Clinton. Jeffrey Epstein didn't just do child trafficking. He did other stuff. He smuggled drugs, he smuggled oil, weapons, nukes, other things. But you can look all this up for yourself. It's all connected. But that's the difference. Someone like me and George Webb, we look at the names, we look at evidence, we look at financial transactions, we look at the board of directors of companies, we look at individuals who are involved. We don't just say, and if you don't believe us, we just tell you to look it up. See, my difference is when someone says, what you're saying is bullshit, I tell them, look it up. Look up the Humpty Dumpty Institute. Look up the stories about who's in the Humpty Dumpty Institute. Look up the board of directors. Look up the donations to these politicians that they get when on opensecrets.org, which is a public site you can go on. This is all public information. And I want you to find it. See, I'm not trying to hide it like I have this knowledge, this enlightened knowledge that you'll never get. I want people to find this out so we can hold the media, the politicians, and all the people involved accountable and save lives. That's the difference though, see? I actually want a solution. I'm a solution-oriented person. I don't want to just talk about problems. And I want you to look it up. That's the difference. You can tell if someone is telling the truth if they say, look it up. But if someone gets defensive, whether it's the mainstream media, they call you a racist or sexist for not believing them, or it is an individual person on YouTube who says, you're not enlightened enough, you just don't understand, they're full of shit, and you should never, ever respect that person's opinions. And by the way, on a side note, this is the last thing I'll say, but one of these morons predicts all these things, and he's never right. What if you constantly would watch the weather and the weatherman was wrong all the time? You would quit watching him and quit giving them the time of day, right? Well, these people, they literally predicted that a few years ago the Colts were going to win the Super Bowl. They didn't even make the playoffs. They predicted that Bob Dylan was going to die in like 3 weeks, and it never happened. Just hold these people accountable to the same standard. That's all I'm saying.